It is a must-win week, and of course, we've got 6 teams on a bye because nothing can be easy for fantasy football. So as you can see on your screen, like I said, you've got the Ravens, Broncos, Texans, Colts, Patriots, and Commanders out this week, and these are some of the big fantasy superstars that you're going to be missing. Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon. You can continue to look through those names, so it's going to be absolutely brutal. So you two, we're going to go through our confidence meter, and Pete, I'll start with you on this one and just how confident you are in starting some of these fantasy football players. But in a must-win week, Pete, how confident are you in Breece Hall going up against the Dolphins? He had only 6 fantasy points in week 13. What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, confidence, not great. He's a little banged up. They're using Braylon Allen a good bit. And on top of this, the Dolphins have been a tough matchup. They're not ceding a ton of points to opposing running backs. So yeah, I'm a little concerned here. I do think it's a matter of shifting our perspective of how we think about Breece Hall. At points in this season, he was a locked and loaded top 5 running back you start in any matchup. Now he's a little bit more boom bust. He's more in that, say, Kenneth Walker territory than he is in a Saquon Barkley territory. So yeah, I'm adjusting here, and the Jets seem to be having far more success through the air right now. So it's a tough spot if you're a Breece Hall manager.
Gene, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things about the Dolphins and what they've done since they've kind of transformed their offense from a vertical passing offense to really more of an underneath type of dink and dunk and take what the defense gives you offense is that they're possessing the ball longer. The longer the possession, the longer you're holding it, the less time you give the other team to be able to take advantage of that. And so there's a good chance that they can possess the ball longer, get up, and now the Jets are playing from behind, which means less Breece Hall, right? So all of those things together, I think it does cause a little worry for people who might be thinking that Breece Hall can bring it home for them.
In a must-win week, Pete, how confident are you in Chuba Hubbard? He is going up against the Eagles, which is a tough matchup, and we've seen a little bit more of Jonathan Brooks with his usage ramping up. So how confident are you with Hubbard?
Not confident. I mean, there's a lot of things not working in his favor as we head into this matchup. He had the bad fumble that last game. We're seeing Jonathan Brooks get ramped up. Jonathan Brooks tripled up his snaps, tripled up his targets, saw some really key touches during a red zone drive in a close divisional matchup last week. So Jonathan Brooks, I know he kind of burned a lot of us who are excited about him at the start of the season, not really becoming a factor until late, but he is going to see his usage ramp up. And this isn't to say he's going to completely discard Chuba in the same way Pacheco might discard Kareem Hunt. They just extended Chuba Hubbard. He's a big part of their overall plans. But as far as this week and this stretch, I don't like the matchup. I don't like him ceding valuable touches to Jonathan Brooks. I think it's a spot I would prefer not to have to rely on Chuba.
Gene, what about you?
Yeah, and Pete, one of the other things that we don't talk enough about is the type of defense that they're playing. Like, who's playing better inside linebacker right now than Zach Baum and Nakobe Dean? Those two dudes have been balling out lately. You just saw what they did versus the Ravens. They're going to feel like they can stop anybody if they can hold the Ravens run game in check. And so that's a bad sign if you're Chuba Hubbard or any running back on the Carolina Panthers, but definitely Hubbard if you're trying to make this thing work this week coming up against the Eagles.
Let's go over to confidence level, Pete, in Tyreek Hill. The Dolphins are facing the Jets in week 14. What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, Tyreek has been a tough one to figure out as far as where his health is at with this wrist injury. I will say kind of how he's performed these past couple of weeks is encouraging. I'm not super scared of the Jets. I know they came into this year having one of the better pass defenses in the league, but we've seen them get really lit up by some solid offenses. I remember the Kyler game a few weeks ago where he played out of his mind, and Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride were eating them up. So I'm not super scared of the matchup. And Tua's playing really well right now. And it's now getting to the point with how hot Johnny Smith is that defenses are going to have to start accounting for him. I still think Tyreek can get loose for some big plays, almost similar to the Breece Hall thing. Like, he's not the locked and loaded 101 wide receiver that you can just start every single week. You got to readjust expectations down a little bit, but he's still a guy that can never leave your lineup.
Gene, what do you think here?
Yeah, I agree. You don't want to let him leave the lineup, but you got to be a little bit concerned, right? The production last week, a lot of it came at the expense of a fluky kind of pop out of the hands of one person into his hands that ends up going for a touchdown. There was bad conditions, obviously, or cold conditions, obviously, that played a part. But Jonnu Smith is the star of this offense right now. And the reason he's the star of the offense is because defenses can't take a chance and let you allow Tyreek Hill to get over the top or Tyreek Hill to get the ball in his hands. They're saying, prove you can beat us with Jonnu Smith. And I don't think that changes. So I think it's going to be tough sledding for Tyreek Hill, even though I still think you have to put him out there.
Let's go over to Deebo Samuel, Pete, going up for the 49ers against the Bears. How confident are you in him in a must-win week?
Not confident. You know, he is not a big part of their offensive plans right now. I think this offense is going to funnel through Garendo, Jawan Jennings, and George Kittle. And then Deebo is kind of that, guy who's been pushed to the side. So still like his ceiling, but the floor is non-existent right now.
Gene?
I agree. The floor is definitely lower, but I will say this. You could see Deebo start to get a little bit more carries, out of the backfield since they don't have the complement of running backs that they've had in the past. We've seen in years past where Deebo was able to get some things going through the on the ground. You could see that happen for him again today or this week, excuse me.
Another one that we haven't mentioned a lot before, but let's go to Jayden Reed, Pete. Going up, this is going to be a huge Thursday night game against the Lions, but in a must-win week for fantasy, how confident are you in Reed?
Yeah, it's hard to be confident just the way the Packers are playing right now. And we just haven't seen them fully, pushed in a way where they have to throw a ton. They're really leaning on Josh Jacobs. I still love Jayden Reed, though. I still think he's a guy that they have to get going. And the Lions have been giving up big games to wide receivers. We'll always love these divisional matchups. I do think Jayden Reed has a big game on Thursday.
Gene, good things to say about Jayden Reed?
Yeah, I think that Jayden Reed seems to have carved out a nice little niche as the goal line receiver because there's multiple ways you can get him the football, right? He's a threat to run it. He's a threat to catch it in the flat. He's a threat to go over the top of somebody. I still have some confidence in him. Yeah, he's not getting the amount of catches or targets that you want to see him get, but I think he has a role that's not going to change in this offense.
All right, last one here, Pete. In a must-win week, how confident are you in Patrick Mahomes going up against the Chargers?
Not super confident. I just feel like the number one operative for the Chiefs is to win football games. They're very good at that. You talked about Arthur Smith not caring about our fantasy team. The Chiefs industrial complex does not care about our fantasy teams. I think the hope here is that the Chargers put up a really good fight and this turns into a shootout. I think that's possible. I just think the most likely outcome is the Chiefs play ball control. Isaiah Pacheco has a good game on the ground. We just saw Bijan light up this run defense. So yeah, not super confident. He's a solid play, but it's not like I'm windmilling it in on Patrick Mahomes this week.
Gene, what do you think about Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I'm not betting the house on it. It's probably going to be one of those situations where he's around 250 yards and 1 to 2 touchdowns, maybe a turnover because he is prone to throw it to the other team sometimes. Nothing crazy, nothing that gets you like, oh my God, he's going to win it for me this week. Just probably some solid numbers. And if you have another option to go with, maybe you think about going with that other option.
Definitely a tough week with those 6 teams on a bye, like we said. So good luck in making some of those tough start-sit decisions.